The following program is an MLWRadio.com production.
Welcome back to the third episode of A Week of Lariat, Hiroyoshi Tenzan. And after we talked about a match of the tag team that Dylan deemed ChoTen, we now go to a tag team that is very well known as TenCozy or TenKoji. Both names really go. It is the 2001 G1 Tag League final between the team of Hiroyoshi Tenzan and Satoshi Kojima against Jim Steele and Mike Barton from December 11, 2001. And we said it in one of our previous episodes. TenKoji 6 times the IWGP Tag Team Champions, 1 time NWA Tag Champions, and their record reign as Tag Team Champions lasted from July 20, 2000 until September 23rd, 2001, with 6 successful defenses of the IWGP Tag Team title. Of course, they were not only partners, but in the mid-2000s, very famously known, they were rivals too. But that is a topic for a different time, as we now go into the finals of the 2001 G1 Tag League. And before the final, Steele and Barton had actually beaten TenKoji in the league before. And something that I noted was that on the way to the ring, Satoshi Kojima was kind of moving very slowly. He was limping on the way. As TenKoji, they already had a match on that night because they had to face Nagata and Nakanishi, so the second half of the third generation here, to decide the finalists that would face Steele and Barton with their opponents without a match on that night. So very clear that the faces, the Japanese guys, had these opponents that came fresh to the ring.
Yep, very traditional storytelling in these tournament scenarios. It's been something you've seen throughout time. But it's interesting here. First of all, like, we're getting into a minor point here, but it's something I'll bring up to ask you. Maybe some people are thinking of it themselves. Do you think that the World Tag League is better, or do you like the G1 Tag Climax instead as the name?
See, it's really hard to tell from now because I have this aversion against the World Tag League now because it has been so watered down over the last couple of years that it's not really fair to compare the two because I dislike the World Tag League so much.
What about just the name of it? No, like we know that the Tag League now sucks.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also weren't able to watch these live, like these original G1 Tag Leagues. So just the name, do you think would be better if they changed it back to the G1 Tag Climax instead of the World Tag League?
I actually think yes, because it just sounds more important. In the context of New Japan, G1 just means it's the best.
And plus, go on.
And in World Tag League, it's just a thing that a lot of promotions do.
It's so generic. Yeah. I was exactly going to make that point. And plus, we always know if you're going to do the World Tag League, you'll always be number 2 behind the real World Tag League.
Yes.
So they need to change it to the G1 Tag League back. But that's the first thing that I thought of. I was like, well, this is a lot better name, first of all, for this tournament. It's the same tournament, but still, I think the name's a lot better. And secondly, I think we need to talk about the opposing team before we get into the important thing, which we're covering here.
I was going to ask you too. What did you think about Jim Steele and Mike Barton in this match?
These two, better known as Bart Gunn and Wolf Hawkfield from Ultraman. Yeah. how did this happen? Like, how did these guys go into New Japan somehow in 2001?
That's what I was wondering too when they were coming to the ring. That I thought, man, this really was a different era.
It really was. This guy.
But the way the match was structured, I really think that these two were a very good choice to face TenKoji. Because actually the two big guys, with Jim Steele being bigger than Mike Barton, of course, but they were able to really play the traditional American heel tag team against the Japanese side. So that is really a throwback to a different era in Japanese wrestling. So I couldn't hate it. I thought the match actually was pretty good.
I think that this was so much like an 80s tag match.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and I wrote that down as an 80s tag match. I think they took stuff from, you mentioned the Japanese way of doing it, obviously with the Gaijin versus the natives, but I also think a lot of the layout was very similar to 80s WWF tag wrestling as well, where you had a lot of workers like Mike Barton and Jim Steele that heavily facilitated that scene. So I really liked that they worked this kind of throwback match. When you look on paper, you see Burt Gunn and Wolf Hawkfield as a team. You're thinking like, what in the world? But here they did. I thought, again, they made this match a lot about TenCozy themselves here. Just by the end of this felt like a big match for them.
It really felt like a signature match of sorts, because we saw a lot of stuff that made them popular as a tag team. We start the match out with Tenzan and Steele, and there are early Mongolian chops from Tenzan, but Steele overpowers him quickly with a running shoulder tackle. Tenzan gets back in control, throws Steele to the outside. Tenzan suplexes him back in, and we got a shot of Scott Norton being ringside for the American side, of course. So this was kind of a first flurry between Tenzan and Steele. We then go to Kojima and Barton, who engage in a chop duel. Kojima does a flipping senton, I noticed. That is something that he would not do later in his career.
No, he cut that out eventually.
Yes. Kojima is in control, much like Tenzan for the first couple of minutes. We then again see a shot ringside. We see Tatsutoshi Goto and Hiro Saito ringside for TenKoji. Masahiro Chono is shown. He's on commentary. So, we see who is on which side here. Tenzan is in the ring again. We get a short switch of control to the American team, but TenKoji is able to regain control with a nice-looking combination. It's, both of their guys' moves combined with Kojima doing the elbow drop and Tenzan doing the headbutt on Barton. But then we get friendly fire from Tenzan and Kojima, and Steele attacks Kojima's neck with a what's it called, the move?
Steele attack with the neck breaker?
Yeah, he did this neck breaker on the ground. I can't remember the move's name right now. But more importantly, Barton then goes to repeated body slams. He kind of does 3 or 4 body slams in a row, and then 3 or 4 elbow drops in a row. Kojima is able to reverse a suplex attempt into his own backdrop and tags in Tenzan for a very loud reaction of the crowd, Dylan.
I have to be honest with you, this early part I wasn't in love with, to be honest with you. I think a lot of it was the American side, too. Maybe me not warming up to them. Not necessarily anything wrong with the action, but I thought it was very basic tag work.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, but it felt like, to me, like at this point, because you mentioned the pop for Tenzan, it felt like nothing was going on, and then the crowd was waiting for Tenzan to come in here. So I think Tenzan was super for this crowd for some reason, and no offense to Kojima here, but it really felt like this early going. They wanted to see Tenzan run roughshod, but this match had other plans going forward.
Yeah, but for now, the crowd gets Tenzan. Tenzan is fired up with Mongolian chops, headbutts, calf branding. So basically, the best of Hiroyoshi Tenzan within 30 seconds. We get Barton, who comes back with a sidewalk slam and who does a very weird-looking diving body attack on Tenzan to the outside. He didn't really look comfortable in the air, to be quite honest.
It was kind of... I give him props. It was kind of like... It looked dangerous.
It looked like midway through, he decided he would not do an X handle, but would do a body attack.
Yeah, that's a great description of it, too. This was a wild and totally unexpected dive. I've never seen... Bart Gunn, the only thing I know about him, really, is brawl for all. Pretty much, knockout guy. And so to see him do this ridiculous-looking dive, this looks like a dive you would try to do, Strickland, if you try to do it over the top rope. Yeah. So like you said, I think he didn't know what he was going to do. At first, he wanted to do it, but maybe he overshot it a little, and he's like, screw it. I'm going all the way with this dive here. And it totally was very weird. I agree with you. But again, it looked like it looked dangerous. I'll give him that.
Steele outside kick takes care of Kojima, and apparently there was a tag that I missed because suddenly Steele was the legal man. I don't know.
Lucha rules. It's just straight between Wolf Hawkfield.
Yeah.
Didn't you know that he's originally, he brings Lucha Libre rules into all of his matches?
Of course he does. Yeah, sure. Steele inside the ring has Tenzan in a camel clutch, and in a very rude heel tactic, he makes Kojima watch his partner suffering in the camel clutch. I thought that was a nice heel strategy. Kojima then gets into the ring and stomps on Steele and eventually breaks his partner free. And there is a duel of strikes again between Tenzan and Barton this time. Stalling brainbuster from Barton for a 2 count. Tenzan briefly gets back into action as he counters with a sunset flip, gets a 2 count out of that. But at this portion of the match, Jim Steele is in control. He drives Tenzan into the corner with big lariats, because the guy was a big dude. And he then adds 3 DDTs, and that almost gets it done. I was thinking, man, why do you do 3 DDTs in a row? It almost seemed like he was kind of lost there and just figured, I'm killing time here.
That's a good way to look at it. I kept writing his name as Wolf here, like Wolf Hawkfield, even though Jim Steele is his name here. But let me just ask you this. Never mind the match, because you're right. I was going to say that maybe that was his 3 amigos of the DDT version. Again, Lucha rules bringing in here with Hawkfield. But what did you think of Jim Steele's tights here? These orange Zubaz pants that it looked like he was wearing.
See, only a douchebag would wear pants like that or tights like that, so very on point.
Okay, so we've got good heel work from Steele, is what you're saying. Yeah, he had dick moves. He was getting lost in the match. There's something so, about these two, Barton and Steele, both of them. You kind of teased it earlier with Barton and Steele here as well. There's just something so awkward about these guys. Like watching them wrestle and try to do character work. I don't know how it's feeling. There was a certain charm to it. I was kind of like 50-50. Like, is this awesome or not good? No, I'm not really sure.
Actually, I was into them because, as I said, they were a very good foil that Tenzan and Kojima could work onto.
Yeah, I agree with you on that end. They were a very good heel team here. The crowd was getting into it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, 3 DDTs almost gets it done for Steele, who then goes to a move that is in Japan known as an avalanche hold, otherwise known as an Oklahoma Stampede. He overpowers Tenzan at this point, but only a 2 count. The crowd, of course, is vastly behind Tenzan. He does... What was this move next? What Jim Steele did? I typed down release powerbomb, but it was kind of like he got him up for a powerbomb and kind of just threw him away.
Yeah, it was a weird, like very like awkward. Again, this is why I just mentioned it. These guys are super awkward wrestlers. I'm convinced of it. Like both of these guys, I like no disrespect to them, but here again, this powerbomb, it was kind of like a half sideways powerbomb type of thing, like a release version, like you said. It's not. It was just so awkward to watch these guys wrestle. But I will say this. Talking about Tenzan, since this is this show and you're mentioning it, that the Gaijin really took a lot of this match here. Like they're working on top. I thought Tenzan's selling was really good throughout all of this, even when he was in these crazy positions that Wolf was putting him into. But I thought he did a great job selling the match, and the crowd was getting behind him. But I also thought that he did a good job working from under here, and I really like that. It's something that you wouldn't think about when you think of this team TenCozy, but I think that he did a great job as a face in peril here.
Yeah, and very much in contrast to what he did in the tag match that we discussed on our last show, where he played the heel role with Masahiro Chono. So we see here that Tenzan really, in the tag team role, could do both, or could hold both ends of the bargain. So again, that shows how good Tenzan was. And you mentioned his selling. His selling was good in the next portion too, because he was in this Canadian backbreaker by Barton, and Kojima has to come in again to break it up, and he hits a Koji cutter, and from there the match really hits another gear, because this now is time for the babyface side to run wild on the Americans. There is the mountain bomb again from Tenzan and the hot tag to Kojima, who comes in and runs wild on both opponents. And there is Ishautsu Bakayaro, and the crowd really chants along with it. A dragon screw by Kojima, I noted. Shout out to his later becoming his mentor, Keiji Muto. Steele gets his boot up in the corner against Kojima and is able to hit a very nice looking diving shoulder tackle, I noted. And then we get more top rope action from the big guys. Two big splashes for a 2 count, one by Jim Steele and one by Mike Barton, which looked much better than the other top rope move he did.
Oh, absolutely. This was the Uso splash here between these two big guys. And like you said, this time, both of them, like you said, a much better showing, despite some earlier flubs from these two. The splashes, I thought that was a really unexpected and cool little spot from them.
Absolutely. Barton does somewhat of a low punch right in front of the referee.
What was that? Like, that was so weird.
I don't know. He just hit Kojima low and hit a powerbomb on him, which was on commentary. The announcer really screamed from the top of his lung, "Barton disaster!" So that was apparently the name of the move.
I love it. See, the more we talk about it, the more I like this match.
It was really fun. Kojima gets out at 2, and the crowd gets louder and louder as Kojima calls echoes through the building, and there is a counter lariat by Kojima. Both are down, which then brings Tenzan and Steele back into the ring, and there is a wheel kick by Tenzan for a 2 count. Everybody then gets into the ring. Rules are completely thrown out the window. Well,
Lucha rules.
There was a low blow before, so what are we even saying? So
that is true.
We go to the TenKoji kata, which is a move that they had adopted around that time too. And Kojima does a lariat to the back of the head. I think was it on Steele or on Barton? I'm not sure right now. Who was it? But definitely Tenzan gets the attention at the end of the match, because he hits his TTD, the Tenzan Tombstone Driver, almost for a 3 count, but then again goes back to the moonsault. That looked much less frightening than it looked later in his career. Much better version of that moonsault that then seals the deal for TenKoji. And much like in the match before, where Chono was the much cooler guy. Now, Tenzan kind of is the more cooler guy as they win this tournament, and Kojima completely goes crazy about that. I love that, and the crowd did too.
Oh, yeah. Kojima, if there's one thing about him, he always had such amazing fire.
Yeah.
And we saw it again here in the Tag League win. This was awesome. I thought this was great. You mentioned the moonsault. Again, Tenzan still, he's bigger than he was in 95, but not as big as he would get later on. And obviously his knees were healthy at this point as well, which was nice. That probably helped his moonsaulting ability here. But yeah, this was very interesting. I love the celebration. And by the end of this, I love how everyone sold this again like it was like the biggest match of their career, like a huge win for all of them, a huge win and also a huge match for the Gaijin here. And it probably was one of their biggest career matches when you think about it.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I thought everybody sold this really well, and it made it seem that much bigger how they sold it afterwards.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, this was one of the key moments that made TenKoji so popular as a tag team act in the early 2000s. They, of course, were tag team champions much more often later on, as I mentioned, in their career. Dylan, I gotta ask you now, is it TenKoji or is it ChoTen for you?
Oh, this is something that I was definitely thinking about. I knew that we were going to talk about it. And I think the thing that lets TenKozy get the edge a little bit is that they had more longevity, you know, both as rivals and as partners. Because if you remember, even when Kojima was still in All Japan, they reunited in the late 2000s. So you're looking at somebody like they were apart for a bit, like 2003 to 2008 or whatever as rivals. But by that point on, they were friends again, pretty much. So you're looking from that to now, like still a tag team to this day, and you had the NWO Japan stuff. So I feel like they had a little bit of a longer run. ChoTen was probably more, in my opinion, I think more formulative to Tenzan's career. But I think TenKozy was a better tag team in ring.
Yes, they really have this Japanese legacy all over the place, not only in New Japan. They won the Tag League. They were also champions of the Real World Tag League over in All Japan in 2006 and 2008. So very important stuff there. They were a part of the Global Tag League in 2016 too. So in all tag leagues of the big promotions, they played a role. So I think that gives them the edge. The NWA thing was nice. It was just more of a thing to put over the NWA with popular wrestlers. So,
to me, I don't really look at this latest run of theirs as that impressive.
No.
Because the tag team division is so bad. Like, I don't want to say bad, but it's very uninteresting. You know, like there's just not a lot of. It's not even that even. It's not even bad or uninteresting. They don't promote it as anything special at all. So to me, it's like you look at a lot of the stuff. Their tag runs are sandwiched between Killer Elite Squad, Gorillas of Destiny, like same sort of like Bullet Club teams in the past with like Anderson and Gallows. They had their run where they were trading titles and stuff. So you look at that. It's just the titles have never really meant that much during this latest run. But I think around this era, the tag team division was a lot more well-rounded. You look at teams like Nagata and Nakanishi, which were a real team. You know, they had a lot of guys here where even in 95 with Shono, I think that the tag division was not that good, but they were able to elevate it through their team more than anything. Whereas I think TenKoji had better opponents for them during this run, but also the later run I wouldn't put as a big deal for them.
Yeah, absolutely. You really got to go back to the run that I mentioned, the one from July 2000 to September 2001, which is the time frame that we are talking about now, and with this match too, as really one of the best tag runs they had.
Absolutely, and I thought for this match specifically, I thought these guys were put in a really strong effort here against workers that they did a good job in their role, But definitely, you could have seen this going off the rails. Like I feel like if things hadn't have, if these guys first of all hadn't have been so over to the fans, so charismatic. But I thought for Tenzan's portion, I thought he did a great job working for Under. And like you mentioned, we've seen versatility in all three of these matches that we've looked at, and all three different scenarios that we've looked at. So I've really been impressed with Tenzan as an overall worker during this run. And I think that a lot of people think that like, oh, Tenzan was never good. But I think we're seeing that may not be true, to be honest with you.
Yes, no, he definitely had a lot to him, as we saw in different roles over the years. And I said it before, for the vast majority of the time and for the vast majority of his G1 runs, he was most known as a tag wrestler. But that would change dramatically at the beginning of the early 2000s, around 2002, that point. And that will be the talking point of our next show. So, until then, goodbye.
それも大人の勲章だって時の重さをかみしめる